And after 25 years, the Irish Emigrant has sent its last newsletter. Starting out at a time when the internet was unheard of, it's relayed the news from home to emigrants around the globe. They'll be telling us about having to explain what email was and the following they built up over the years.
Well, after 25 years, the Irish Emigrant has sent its last newsletter. Starting out at a time when the internet was unheard of, Liam and Pauline Ferrie's weekly updates to Irish emigrants around the globe helped many people keep in touch with what was going on in the old sod.
So are they sad to say goodbye? Liam and Pauline join us now. A very good morning to you both.
Good morning.
You must have a lot more time on your hands because you put it to bed about 2 weeks ago?
Yes, the 6th of February was the last edition.
Sad day?
I suppose in a way it was, but it was good too because we have our weekends back. We always had to work very hard at weekends, and we didn't send it out until, well, we didn't finish it until about 2 o'clock on a Monday morning.
Whoa!
So...
It was probably partly lack of discipline, not getting it done early enough in the week, but always seemed to keep us doing.
In the 25 years, how did you manage to get it out every week and take a holiday?
Well... Go on.
Well, we get people that stand in for us on occasion whenever we needed them. We'd manage to take a holiday every year, so there'd always be somebody to stand in, and we'd do a couple of extended.
What was the circulation like at the end, Liam? I mean, how many people in how many countries were getting weekly updates?
We had 24,000 people receiving the Emigrant from us. In the end, they were receiving just the headlines, and it was referring them back to our web page because we put the whole thing on the web page. I think we'd have had more readers earlier on because in the early years people would print it off and it'd be passed around the communities, and you'd hear all sorts of stories of it getting to different places.
What sorts of stories?
Well, there was the guy, Hall Ellie, his name was. He had Irish roots, and he was down in San Diego, an ex-US Air Force Major, I think he was. And he'd gone to a pub called the Old Sod on a Monday night, or Tuesday night, I think he'd have it. And he'd print off numerous copies of it. And I think he just charged them the cost. He told me there was charging the cost of printing it just because he was no longer working. He was kind of laid back sort of a fellow. We've met him. So if he didn't go down to the Old Sod in San Diego on a Tuesday night with us, they were all phoning to see where he was. That was one. There was Geneva, there was a pub, I think it might have been called Mulligan's, I'm not sure. There was a pub in Geneva where UN people came in. There'd be a lot of Irish people working in UN in Geneva, and they'd all congregate in this pub. It was a Monday night there, and I remember when the person who delivered it to the pub, the digital person who delivered the copy to the pub, stopped going there or get transferred somewhere else. I got a phone call from the publican to see how can she get a copy to keep these people coming in on a Monday night.
Pauline, there was a copy of it being read in the South Pole.
There was. I think he was a research student, and he was working down at the South Pole, and once every week, I think, a satellite would go overhead, and he could download stuff, and he would then download the Emigrant and read it. Yes.
You started it by email, isn't that right, Liam? Back in the day when very few people had email.
Yeah, people in the high-tech world were using email. All the big computer companies would have their own version of email, and the universities would be using email as well. So in the 1980s, most of the email that was being used would have been in those areas, or in the US forces that had been using it as well. But we would send it out, and initially it was just the digital people who had moved abroad. And then I've started finding digital people in different parts of the world who had emigrated and got jobs there, in Canada and Australia, New Zealand.
Well, the universities picked it up then. We had a lot of
the universities were big. And I think we had 660 universities in our list at one stage where there were people. And mostly Irish people. Some of them would be people with Irish roots. And you'd always find people who were interested in Ireland with absolutely no connection.
An interest.
Just huge interest.
Yeah, we had the lawyer in Germany. Remember, he used to get one of the... We used to send out about 20 printed copies every week. One went to a nun in India who was an aunt of one of our email readers. Another went to a man in Dublin, actually, whose son was a reader, but his father found it, you know, convenient to read the condensed version. But there was also a lawyer in Germany who was fascinated by Irish law, and we had to send him one every week as well.
What changes have you seen in the 25 years? The good and the bad changes?
In the internet or in life in general?
No, just in life, just in
Ireland.
Ireland.
And in the newsletter itself.
Well, the life in general, I mean, things were tight 25 years ago financially, particularly for people who are rearing families. We had 5 sons, and I remember a guy coming into work one day. He was a manager, so he was getting good money. He says, sat down, did some sums last night. He says, I don't earn enough. He says, I need to spend more money than I'm earning. And this was somebody because of the taxation system. So I poo-pooed this. I says, you must be earning enough. So I went home and I did the same thing. And I was a wee bit better off. I had worked out, I had £3 per person per week to feed and clothe us. That's what, you know, when you took everything else out of it. And I had a company car at the time, and petrol paid for it, but that's how tight things were. But I said to someone else that life was different then from the people who are the coping classes today, and that if you went overdrawn at the bank, nobody bothered you. You know, you had an overdraft, and that was it. So that was a release valve to keep us going.
Okay. I have to ask you. We've noticed your accents.
The accents. this is
so what is the Irish link?
Okay, I was actually born in this country.
Okay.
Down in Kerry, but was brought up in the south of England.
Okay.
So, and both my parents were from Ireland.
And Liam?
My mother was from Maville, County Donegal, and she brought us up believing we were from Maville, County Donegal as well. My father was actually born in Scotland, but the Ferries come from West Donegal. Dunlewy is where his people came from.
There's a great link between Donegal and Scotland.
Huge, absolutely huge. I mean, it's such that there was 3 of us working for Digital whose mothers came from Inishowen, and we'd all been brought up in the same town, Greenock in Scotland.
So you were the perfect people to really set up this publication.
We knew something about the emigrant situation, certainly, yes.
The need for news. You know, in the house in Scotland, we'd be trying to pick up radio, and the reception was bad. But the way the Emigrant got its name was that back, I think, in the late 50s, early 60s, there was somebody up in Maville who used to produce a Ronioed newsletter called The Maville Emigrant, and it had all the snippets of news from around the parish.
Very detailed news.
Very detailed news.
So-and-so has a new television.
A
new tractor.
A new tractor, that kind of stuff. But we'd devour it when it came, because we'd know all the people who'd spent so much time there. So we'd arrive over in Scotland, we'd all be reading this, and we still have them lying around somewhere.
And of course, when you started this, I mean, there was no internet, so and papers took probably a week to get to America or Australia.
Yeah, there was no way of knowing, unless you could afford a phone call, which was one of the big changes over that time, where you pay a fortune in those days to make a phone call, and now it's so cheap.
The Irish Emigrant has been acknowledged. You met with President Mary Robinson.
She came to our office.
Yes.
She made the journey to you.
We invited her. It was suggested to me we invite her when we were celebrating our 10th anniversary. And I thought to myself, not a chance, but I'll invite her anyway. So I sent off the invitation, and she accepted. And she came down and unveiled a plaque in the office.
And have you gotten many emails over the years from emigrants going, thank you so much for keeping me updated?
Well, I mean, we haven't had much leisure time since we retired, because we have both received so many emails of appreciation, which, of course, we have to acknowledge. Yes, we have had a lot.
Yeah, it was very. I mean, that's what kept us going. You knew how important it was to people to have it, so that we just. I said in the first edition that I'll give it a few weeks to see how it goes. By the end of a few weeks, the feedback was such. I said, I can't really pull the plug on this now that they're enjoying this. They need it.
Well, after 25 years, you've decided it's time to put the keyboard away.
It's time. Well, no.
Well, the keyboard will never go away.
Well, look, we wish you a happy retirement. We thank you for providing the Irish Emigrant for all these years, and look forward to your weekends.
Thank you.
Many thanks for coming on this morning.
Not at all. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
And don't forget, if you've missed any of the programme, you can catch it online at tv3.ie/3player.
And that is it for today's programme. Tomorrow, the mother of a 5-year-old boy with autism joins us to explain why she's fighting for a reversal in the cutting of his domiciliary care allowance, which she says he desperately needs.
But for now, the Midday Girls are up next, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 11. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.